is that what we're after isn't in another place. Like there isn't some place to go or really something to do or something to attain. But nobody, like you can hear that and say, oh, that sounds great. But we all have to find that out for ourselves. That the seeker, the sought, and the seeking are all the same thing. But you can't take my word for it. You have to, everybody has to dance out their dance, whatever it is, right? So you have to follow whatever you feel drawn to. And what sharpens and speeds it up is knowing what it is you want. That's the first, that's like, for me, that's the fundamental basis for practice, if you call it practice, but for making yourself prone to awakening. Is, first of all, if you want to feel good, if that's what you're after, there are a myriad of feel-good programs available. Everywhere, you can, just walk out your door and there it is, right? So there's, in the thing to know about feeling good, there's nothing wrong with feeling good. I want to feel as good as anybody else. And I do plenty of things to maintain a sense of feeling good in my body, in my health. But that's something that has to be maintained. It's an experience that comes and goes. And when awakening happens, this is what we wake up to. We wake up to the constant background of who we are, and it comes into the foreground more and more and more as we allow it. But we're waking up to something that's constant, that doesn't require a so-called maintenance program. Now the embodiment and the integration for everybody is unique and different and will involve some kind of practice or some kind of paying attention. Let's call practice just giving something attention. It's not like practice in the sense of something rigid, but just where do we put our attention? And that's why if we have resolved in the first place to become very clear on what it is we want, what is our interest in life, what is the most important thing, and if we have clarified that from the get-go, then that's going to steer our attention. Just like I remember a long time ago, quite a long time ago, when the feel-good thing was to find out what your color is, and then you could color coordinate your wardrobe, and you'd get a little color palette if you did one of these color consultations, and it would show all of the colors that are good for your skin and your hair and all of that. And so once you have the color, because you go out into these big shopping malls, there's so much out there on the racks, and you don't know, like at first it's like overwhelming because, wow, what do I go to? But if you have your colors, then you eliminate 85% of the store. And the same thing in the spiritual marketplace. If you know what you want is to wake up to truth, everlasting. If you want to know what the source of life is, if you want to know who you are directly, and then that's your palette, and that's what you're going to be drawn to, and it eliminates all of these other possible distractions. So it just keeps. It sharpens our discrimination. And it makes us grace prone. It makes us more apt to fall into who we are, to fall awake, so to speak. It's different for everybody. I'm not going to go into the experience of that right now. My phone keeps buzzing. Sorry about that. But that is the most important thing. What is it I want? And then that will sharpen our attention, and then it's paying attention to that and letting yourself be more in your body rather than in the mind, because the mind is constantly changing. And rather than pay attention to that, pay attention to the sensations that are happening in the body. And when we do that, we can feel what it is we resonate with. Because if our training is very much academic or intellectual, and that's where we gravitate toward, thought. It's very useful for many things, but it's not that useful for spiritual awakening. So we may actually like to read a lot of books and all of that, but just like reading is very different than writing. You know, writing it takes energy. You know, it takes, like when you read something, just like watching TV or going onto a computer screen, it can put you to sleep. You can move into a trance, right? It kind of puts a veil over what's natural in us. You know, our natural energy is enlivened when we participate. So if we come into our bodies, we're more apt to participate in whatever's being presented. And then we can sense, do I resonate with this? You know, what is it that I'm, what's calling me? What's pulling me, my true self, forth? What's touching this? And then that is what we have to get familiar with that. We have to get familiar with that sense of touching, sense of presence, sense of being, rather than a sense of knowing in our heads. And because even if we have a spiritual awakening, which is a shift in identity out of the head and into being, when that shift happens, for many people, they kind of have a sense that something happened, but they may not even trust it. So, and there's layers of doubt over it. And this is why it's important to have a sense of, what do I resonate with? What's really calling me forth? What's calling me forth in my body? What's calling me forth in my heart? What is it that enlivens my presence? What is it that gives me a sense of constancy, a sense of being here now? And when we pay attention to that, then we come to trust our own experience. And then we don't have to go to an outside source for confirmation or for acknowledgement. And this becomes our own. So then our ability then to stand up more in our own presence and to believe in this as the reality of who we are is strong. And it gets stronger and stronger according to what we pay attention to and what we give ourselves to. So some people would say that once this happens, you're finished and that's it. Well, believe me, you can fall back asleep at any time, because this whole process, it's a process, and it takes, just like we were doing in the meditation, we want to wake up to every part of ourselves. We want to integrate all parts of our lives. So we're awake, we're living in presence. We're living from this space of who we are. In our work, in our relationships, in our family, so we're not like checking out and going unconscious because suddenly something became difficult. We're like, oh, I can walk away from this one because we have, may take on this storyline because I don't exist, right? Because I'm not really here. I'm an illusion. Right? And so, yeah, you got to just get past that. Because if spiritual awakening is going to be authentic, and when it's authentic, it makes us more capable, it widens our capacity to step into every part of our lives with more attention, with more compassion, with more empathy. And when it evolves and when it matures, it spreads out into every part of life. Which would mean, if you hadn't been involved with your family for whatever reason, suddenly you'd find yourself so interested. It's like, they're just as important as I am. There isn't any difference. So that's what it does. It wipes away the sense of separation. this idea that somehow we're different from each other. It brings us together because of our sameness. So it's a unifying process, not a disconnecting process.